circumstance, it doesn't matter the socioeconomic or other backgrounds that you're in, that obviously can pose different hurdles to your life and have shaped the experience you've had. But really understanding that from now on, you can be in charge, and from now on, you can change for better. It might not be perfect, but it can be better. And taking the responsibility and ownership is, I think, the single most important thing you can do on your journey in developing both your career and your personal life.
Welcome to the Illuminating Wisdom podcast. I'm your host, Marcia Narine Weldon, and I'm a lawyer, business strategist, corporate trainer, and executive coach. Each week, I'm going to bring you my favorite entrepreneurs, thought leaders, legal professionals, and other coaches who will inspire, educate, and empower you. So Dominika, I'm so excited to see you today. I'm here with Dominika Fasolo. She is a lawyer who was burnt out and turned into a coach. And I know a little bit of something like that. Although I am still practicing as a lawyer, I am also a coach. So we have a lot in common. You happen to be in Mexico, in beautiful Cancun. I'm from Miami. But I'm really excited because even though you work with lawyers, I think a lot of your messaging is going to apply to busy professionals everywhere. So let's go ahead and get started. Tell us who you are and why you went from being a lawyer to coaching.
Hi, Marcia. Thank you so much for having me, first of all. It's a pleasure to be today on your podcast. I know what you do and I really admire your work. So it is really an honor to talk to you today. My name is Dominika Fasolo. As you said, I'm a former lawyer. For over a decade, I was a lawyer and legal leader in huge companies, two of them over $1 billion tech unicorns. And it's true, I also recently pivoted and I left my legal career behind and I established a coaching and wellness business for lawyers where I'm the head coach. And I'm currently helping busy professionals, mostly lawyers, to create a work-life balance, to reclaim their time and build a career that doesn't require them to sacrifice their personal life. And to do that, I created my own methodology, my own coaching methodology, Law Life Method. And it's a 3-step process for high-achieving lawyers to create a work-life balance through a system that promotes their career, their relationships, and their well-being, and all of that on autopilot sustainably for long term.
So that sounds great, but I'm going to be a little contrarian. I don't know if really a work-life balance actually can be accomplished. Does that exist? Because people talk about it forever. And I remember one time I was on a work-life balance panel, and I just went off script. Somebody said, "How do you do it?" I said, "I don't. Sometimes I'm a really good mother. Sometimes I'm a terrible mother. Sometimes I'm a really good lawyer. Sometimes I'm not so good." So is it really true? And again, whether you're a lawyer or a teacher, and God bless you if you're a teacher, because that's even harder as far as I'm concerned, a nurse, a firefighter, whatever you're doing, does work-life balance exist? And maybe it's a better idea to ask you to define it first.
I love that. I love that you're devil's advocate, and I love that you ask for definition, because I think as a lawyer, we've learned one of the few things. First things in corporate or commercial transaction, the definitions are important. It's the first thing you need to nail down. So my answer to you would be this: 2 things. First of all, there is no kind of universally accepted definition of work-life balance. There's no international convention for lawyers that says work-life balance is this many hours at work, this type of family, this type of help or not help. So I think the first step is really about defining what work-life balance means for you. And like I said, I have a methodology, and the first step in that methodology and process is really digging deeper into where you are right now on your journey, which kind of season you are in your career and personal life, and what the ideal work-life balance or the ideal lifestyle looks like for you. And some clients or some coaches prefer to call it work-life harmony, integration, balance. I really do not need mental gymnastics around it. I think what matters more than the name is the content of that definition. And that is different for different people. So each and every one of my clients has a different schedule, different sets of obligation, different responsibilities. And the work-life balance is obviously connected to all of that. So that would be like the first step. So defining it for us, it's very hard because my work-life balance is very different to yours.
Right.
But if I need to kind of create a baseline on which we can then continue talking about this for today, every single client that I've had define a work-life balance along the terms of having a successful career that they feel accomplished in while having time for themselves or their family. I have clients from various backgrounds. Yes, most of them are lawyers, but some of them are not. Some clients have families, some clients have kids, some clients not to have kids. I have clients from all continents, basically. So I really see commonalities here in terms of having a fulfilling career that I do not have to sacrifice myself for my health, my well-being, my family life. And of course, there are seasons where the balance is towards one side or the other. And this is why you work with coaches, or why you coach yourself through the process of understanding what it is. So this will be the work-life balance for me. But then I would add also something to that question, whether work-life balance is possible. I think that really depends on how you ask the question. Because if you believe it's possible, it's going to be possible. If you believe it's not possible, it's not going to be possible. You're a coach, you work with neuroscience, you know how it is. We have so many informations, up to 11 million bits per second. But our brain, our minds can only process 40 to 50 bits of information. So there has to be a filter. And that filter is dictated by our biases or beliefs. And if those beliefs are limiting, such as I can never have work-life balance, I can never have time for myself, I cannot show up as a good mother because I have a legal job, right? All these kind of stories that we say to ourselves, whether they were right before or not, they define our current experience. So one part of the process, obviously, defining what the work-life balance is. But before that is defining and allowing yourself to believe it, it's possible. And that is work through the limiting beliefs that you have, challenging them, and creating new evidence, supporting new beliefs.
All right, so that's a mouthful. All right, so let's break it down a little bit.
Yeah.
I think coaches, we use that limiting beliefs language, but I think a lot of people like, I don't know what that means. So when you deal with clients, what are some of the most common limiting beliefs that you hear them say, and why do you think that comes up? Because again, I know that most of your clients are lawyers, but by definition, the people who tend to work with coaches are often high achievers, overstressed individuals, etc. And so they may all have, different thoughts about this. So what kinds of limiting beliefs are most common, and where do you think that comes from? Especially because I think the average person might say, you're a banker, or you're a lawyer, or you're a professor, or you're a social worker, you make X amount of money, you've obviously achieved. So what is it that you don't believe in yourself that you can't do?
Yeah. Exactly. This is one of the most common limiting beliefs that I see, that I'm not good enough. And then when I'm not good enough is then exercised, or then is shown in a professional life as overachieving, overdoing, perfectionism, and all these things that stem from this original belief. Where it comes from, I think there are different pathways you can create this belief. There's obviously trauma. This is something I'm not working with. I'm not a therapist, but there are also things that we collect along the way through the experiences that we had. Some of the experiences were true. Some of the experiences we kind of created in our mind. So I would say past programming in general would be the major source of this kind of belief. Another one that I see very often is boundaries are impossible to set. This is something that I also had in my mind. And this is because, first of all, I never believe it's possible, so I really never set them. And because I never really set them, I never really experienced it's possible to set them. But I had clients who tell me the exact same thing. And this comes from the experience. Maybe we try to set boundaries, but the boss wasn't really willing to work with them, or we didn't set them properly. We acted them out, right? We didn't communicate them correctly. And therefore we experienced situations that we did not like, that cause us more pain than the pleasure that the boundary would bring. So to make it more easier for your listeners, the limiting beliefs that we have are coming from our experiences, and the source of that experience could be varied, right? But it's about what we kind of were made to believe, what kind of program we are running in order to make our experience easier. So we see something happening, and instead of analyzing every single input that we have, we immediately put it in a box, and that creates the experience. But the problem is that many times that belief is creating, it's called also self-fulfilling prophecy. So you're looking for experiences that confirm your belief, because as a human being, you obviously want to be congruent with what you believe and what you experience. So if you believe boundaries are impossible, then every single thing that happens to you around boundaries, around that topic, will be supporting that belief.
Excellent. So you obviously coach people, we both do. Do you think everybody is coachable? And I ask this not necessarily saying, should everybody get a coach? Because that's a different question. I think that if you are a leader or manager of any type, and I think a manager, you kind of manage people, a leader, people want to follow you. So Is everybody coachable? Because I want this to not just be something that helps people who say, well, I can't afford a coach, I don't want to coach. If you manage or supervise people or lead people, I don't care if it's a student organization or a multi-million dollar company, you have to coach employees, you have to coach your team members to get the best out of them. So is everybody coachable? Are there some people that you're like, I don't know, that person's beyond hope?
I
And
think
it's okay. And it's okay to say that if you actually believe that.
I believe that, but I believe it in more subjective way. I don't think everybody's coachable by me. And what I mean is that I obviously always have a discovery call before I start and work with client. The client has to have an opportunity to talk to me and understand whether what I teach and how I teach resonates. But it's also opportunity for me to realize if I want to work with that person and if we are on the same page about what is achievable and what is not. And I personally also experienced situations where I felt like there is not a match. And I think that person might be very well coachable by other people, but there was not a trust and authority and connection between me and that particular person, and I can never coach that person as a result of that unless that would have changed. So maybe everybody's coachable, but I don't think everybody's coachable by me, because there has to be, coaching is very intimate relationship. I'm not, as you very well know, as a coach, you're not coming to fix people. People need to be empowered to fix themselves. You're just giving them the tools and the process through which they can fix themselves as a coach. And like I said, I have my own methodology, so there is some kind of standardization to that process, but there still needs to be a very good working relationship with that person. And then on an objective level, I don't think everybody is at a level of awareness that they have enough responsibility for their life to believe that I'm in charge of my own life. And I think that's a really important premise through which you need to start to see coaching and work with coach. Because if you think everything happens to you and you have no power to change it,
Yes.
and you're just always at the mercy of external experiences and people around you and events, it's going to be very hard for you to be coached.
Great. And you talked about trust, authenticity, and connectivity. If I got that correct, I didn't write it down because I was so riveted. What's some advice that you have for people who, again, are leading teams or leading people in their family about how to build that trust, authenticity, and connectivity? Is it
Mm-hmm.
something that everybody can do? So you did say, right, not everybody can be coached by me. But let's say that the person listening is a manager and they've got a team of two or three, or they're an entrepreneur and they're building a team, or they have a family and that family is its own little cohesive team. How do you build, or what are some tips that you have to build that trust, connectivity, and authenticity?
Mm. This is a very good question, because many times, like you said, the team or the family is not something you've chosen, but something that was assigned to you. And there is
Correct.
a big difference between when you're building a team. So already in the interview process, you can find people that are fit to you, to how you see the role evolving, how you see the role in the team. But there are also situations, and I was one of those examples, where I actually was assigned a team. And there might be various dynamics in that team that influence your job as a leader and a manager. Many times your managerial role over that team is not that welcome by the team, because maybe some people from the team wanted that role. Like, let's be real,
Right.
this is the corporate reality. So I think what is necessary is to distinguish between, when I'm hiring people, I have certain parameters and I can make choices about people and how I'm going to structure my team and what is needed. And the second situation is where I actually am assigned a team. There are already inherent dynamic that I need to handle. So this is a kind of first step to distinguish between these two situations. And secondly, building the trust. What I did with my team, and what I think anybody should do with their team, is to really define what trust means for you as a team. So talk about it. We did an exercise with a cup, and we discussed trust as something like water in a cup that is made of
Right.
little tiny drops of water that together create trust and authenticity of the team. And every team member said what trust within the team means to them. And we would see things like living up to your word, showing up
Right.
for the others, collaboration, good communication, mutual respect, sticking to boundaries or sticking to deadlines. Every team, this is a beautiful teamwork and team job that you can do with your team, especially if it was assigned to define the definition of the trust. And then the next step is talking about concrete actions you can take to live up to that definition. Because obviously everybody knows, everybody wants to be trusted, everybody wants to have authority, everybody wants to have a team that collaborates. But what specifically it means in your current priorities, your KPIs, the projects that you're working on, the pairs or couples that you're working in within the team, how the trust translates to the actual day-to-day action. And I think even if you might not have a good rapport with your team just yet, I think being very honest and being very open about, I want to work with you. And for me, trust is very important. And I want to ask you, how can I be a manager you can trust? And you tell me in a playful, open way, and then translate it to an actions, and then live those actions is already a great step towards achieving that trust. But they say also trust is very hard to build, very easy to break. So I would say this is a first step, but how you show up every single day for the team and how the team shows up, it's also important. And here I would add, I know this is a little bit longer reply.
No, you're pretty much giving a master class. This is great. Don't worry about it. I'm sure people are sitting there. We'll have a transcript, people. So people are like, wait a minute, because they might be driving. It's like, wait a minute, this is a nugget. I've got to pull over. There's a transcript. So don't worry. Go ahead.
Definitely. One thing I would really add to that is also, as a manager, don't be afraid to hold people accountable to that agreement. If you made an agreement that trust means, because it's a two-way street, and if you made an agreement, trust means sticking to deadlines or communicating respectfully, communicating in a certain tone, and then team members do not live up to that. First, if you allow that to happen, other team members know that you're not enforcing your own rules. So that's going to create a revolt within your team. And number two, what it shows to that particular individual that you're not really seeking that trust. So as soon as you start to see in actions of your team breaking that trust towards you or towards the other team members, you need to take care of that immediately and be very specific, very respectful, but give that feedback. And involve HR if need be, involve your management if need be, but really enforce that agreement as you go.
I love it. That's fantastic. So you've just given us a masterclass on trust, authenticity, and connectivity. Let's switch gears and go to productivity, right? And you have talked about productivity and time management, and you disagree with some of the conventional wisdom out there about how to manage time and how to be productive. What are some of your thoughts? And again, everybody, I know she's going to drop some knowledge, so there's a transcript. Give us some kind of bullet points of what you think is wrong with traditional time management, productivity expertise that's out there, and what you think people should be focusing on instead.
Yeah. I love how you gave an introduction to this, and I definitely do have my own methodology and my own approach to it that's specifically, as you said at the beginning, tailored to lawyers. But just to be a little bit broader, the main issue that I have with productivity is that it focuses on tips and tricks and tools, sort of little bits and pieces of information that might or might not be relevant for particular backgrounds and for particular professions. But I see time management and productivity as a broader topic, a broader discipline that needs to go deeper than just setting timer for 50 minutes and working in distraction-free mode. That is one of the tools that I'm using with clients. That is a tool that brings an amazing results and focus, and it's absolutely suitable. But there is an entire process that goes before, that needs to take place before you're actually ready to set that timer. And so I'm looking at a productivity and time management from a more holistic perspective. And I think in this essence, it's a combination of coaching and mindset tools and combination of real life productivity tools. And I think many gurus online, because social media obviously rewards simplicity, rewards buzzwords, rewards language around, I do this one thing and I work 2 hours and make 7 figures, right? This is the standard precipice on which the social media productivity gurus present their knowledge. And I think that simplification is good for likes and growth on social media, but many times has a limited value for people in professions like lawyers, auditors, accountants, finance people, teachers, as you said before, or even entrepreneurs. I think it's kind of misleading. So just a short answer to your question, it's really about looking holistically at your mindset, the beliefs that we discussed, the way you approach your balance or your productivity, what you want to achieve, and how committed you are to achieve it, and then equipping yourself with the right tools for your goals, role, and then all the kind of challenges that you experience in your role.
Excellent. So you don't love the hacks, you don't love the tips, but you do have to look at it holistically. And I think that's the problem. I think people start to feel guilty. And I have another guest on whose recording is before yours, Vicky Yaffe, and she talks about productivity and time management, but she has a very different approach, similar to yours, about why things don't work. And I think people feel bad. They say, well, I can't understand this. Everybody uses this technique, or this is supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
so wonderful. Why is it not working for me? And we do have to somewhat look at it a little bit more individualized.
Absolutely.
Speaking of individuals, you work with people across cultures and over 4 continents. Um, and I'm wondering, it feels like the world is just generally unhappy and burnt out. But do you see any difference? And I think whether you're a lawyer, whoever you are, I know I'm super happy and not burnt out, but most people I know, it's a struggle right now. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't care when you're listening to this. If you're listening to this 2 years from now, somebody that's listening to this is struggling and dealing with issues. But do you find any differences across your clients, because you do coach across 4 different continents? Are there some trends that you see that maybe in people in the EU, and of course you can't generalize, but your clients who are drawn to you that you work with in the EU might be different than the clients that you're working with in Mexico? Are there any
Mm-hmm.
cultural issues related to burnout or stress or time management that we should be aware of?
Mm-hmm. I think I love how you gave the introduction to that question of where the world is right now. And I think if you look at where the world is right now, one of the main issues or root causes that we look at each other as different because of different culture, because of different background, because of different visual appearance. And from my experience of coaching, if I'm 100% honest, I do not see any difference. Actually, when I'm sitting in front of a person from Australia or from Pakistan or from Dubai, on Denmark, Sweden, UK, US, or Mexico, I'm hearing the
Mhm.
same things over and over. So I would say on a human level, on a basic human needs level, on a basic understanding of the world and aspirations of a person's, and now specifically lawyers, because currently I'm only coaching exclusively lawyers, I do not
Mhm.
see that much difference. And I think this is also caused by sort of a pre-screening or pre-filtering my clients, that I work with a particular avatar, particular type of client in a particular stage of their career and personal development and age group and economic group, that I think at that stage a lot of people are similar. And I hear this a lot from my US clients that believe just because I'm European from EU, sort of work life balance is embedded in our lifestyle. And I can tell you the most burnout people that I've had were from Europe and from Asia. So,
Asia, I could see, right? But in, we look at the Instagram and TikTok memes where, people are, it's not even a meme. I have
mm-hmm,
friends that live in the EU, like, oh yeah, I'm taking my holiday. I was like, weren't you just on holiday? Well, yes, I get,
mm-hmm.
12 weeks or something ridiculous.
Yeah,
So there is
yeah,
a little bit of a difference. So,
yeah,
so
there is.
I'm going to push back a little bit. So, and we talk about burnout. And before you give your answer, I'd like you to give us your definition of burnout, because, we are lawyers. I mean, to be speaking on the same level, right? Because people might say, I'm just so burnt out, etc. But burnout comes from a lot of things. But isn't there something to be said that if you have more time off, it's going to be easier for you to at least mitigate the effects of burnout? So in the EU, where they have several weeks of holiday, and very rarely do I see people, it could be changing, but most people I know, when they're on holiday, they're really on holiday. Whereas,
Mm-hmm,
anybody that knows me will say that in past lives, I could be on vacation on the beach. I'm still there with the laptop, or I'm still, sending emails from the Great Wall of China on vacation with my son in a magical moment, but I had reception. So let me just check in with the office. That's
mm-hmm,
a, that is a, I think it's a very American thing. And when I say America, I mean, North American thing.
mm-hmm,
But, and it could be also a European thing. But I'm also saying that some of those other places have a lot more time off. And where
mm-hmm.
it is ingrained in the culture that, yes, we should take holiday, we should spend time with the family. We don't have to be tethered to the phone. So is that something that you see with your clients, that there might be a little bit more of a chance to escape the burnout?
I like how you obviously argumented your answer and pushed back a little bit on the Europe versus US. But I do have clients from Europe, and many of them did not even avail themselves of the holidays. And I was a legal manager, and I managed 25 people. And I remember the biggest issue we had at the end of the year was how we're going to utilize these hundreds of days of holidays just in 1 month, because you can only carry them to the next year in a limited amount. So again, I think it also depends on the industry or who you're talking to, but there's certainly a lot of generational issues right now when it comes to Europe and law firms and legal fields specifically. Maybe other fields are more relaxed, but definitely law firms and legal departments of big corporations in Europe are definitely more American and Northern American lifestyle.
Yes.
I personally spend all of my holidays with my computer, with my phone on, whether I was junior or whether I was senior, whether I was head. So I literally was walking with my daughter when she was a few months old with my phone in my hand, texting and replying. So, but yeah, maybe there is a American society or American lawyers are more prone to burnout or more prone not to take holidays because the statutory allowance is lower than in Europe. So I would agree, but maybe the
There is no
beginning
there is no
there is no
statutory allowance in
statutory.
the US. It's like, is there one? I didn't. So, but this is important though, right? Because industry is important. So why are lawyers so unhappy? I think I might be one of the few happy lawyers I know. And I've been a happy lawyer for 31 years. But why are lawyers so unhappy? What's wrong with our profession?
I would, on your example, I would demonstrate that it has to do with control. You're an empowered individual who's in control of her life. And when you make a decision, you are aware of the fact that that decision is made consciously with, I'm on holidays in China with my son, but now I have reception. And right now I'm choosing to do this. And you're not beating yourself up for that decision. You're not beating up yourself up for missing out on that moment because you consciously make a decision, control decision that you want to do something. I think when you look at the legal profession as such, there is very little control over our work days. That depends on a practice area, though I would add there are obviously practice areas that are more prone to external unforeseen events and there are areas that are less. But generally, I feel like lawyers exercise very little control over their workload, over their priorities, over their schedules, and that is
Hmm.
causing stress. And that stress is then obviously translated into physical, mental health issues, and that is obviously driving the unhappiness, as you put it at the beginning. So I would say the lack of control over the schedule. I think there has been multiple research done across board with respect to workload. Around 75% of lawyers feel like they have unmanageable workload. 63%
Right.
of lawyers report inability to plan anything. And I think if you look at these numbers, 20 to 30% of alcohol usage, 1 in 3 depression experience, and all these numbers suggest that there is something in legal industry and the nature of the job itself that creates these numbers. And I think that has to do with the nature and an ability to exercise control over your day.
That's a really great way to think about it because, and I didn't always have control even when I was a junior person, and I was still pretty happy because I felt like what I was doing was something that innately I really enjoyed. And I think a lot of lawyers just don't enjoy the practice of law.
Mm.
I see lawyers from every perspective. I teach lawyers, with law students. I coach lawyers. I work with lawyers. I am also a current GC of a small company. So I see the entire lifespan, and I just think that people have very different expectations when they're in school as to what they think being a lawyer is, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've watched Suits, which is now back on Netflix. Now having another generation of people come out and think this is what being a lawyer is like. It's really fun and it's hard charging, etc. And you go to trial 3 days after you get the case or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the deal gets done within minutes, and or they watch LA Law just came back on, and that was a show from the early 90s, and I remember that was something that propelled a lot of people to go to law school in my generation, because I went to law school in the late 80s. Actually, I went in the early 90s, but a very different way of like, wow, this looks interesting. I'm going to make such a difference. And I don't think that's what a lot of practicing law is like. So I'm wondering if we just
Mm.
need to do a better job of telling people this is the reality. Um, but it doesn't have to be the reality. So I'm going to ask you this: if you were the in charge of all lawyers and all law practice worldwide for fantasy for a few minutes, what are 3 things that you'd say the profession has to change?
Mhm. I just want to add a little bit to my previous answer when I talked about control. And you said a lot of lawyers experience all these issues because they went to law for wrong reasons or just questioning why they're in law. I'm specifically working with people who want to stay in law. Like the whole premise of my program is you can get to keep your career that is
Right.
financially lucrative, brings you status, brings you a lot of connections, and is respected, and build the work-life balance. So most of my clients, like talking from my client experience, do not question why they're in low or being unhappy per se with the profession. They're just more finding a way to practice or to work within the profession in a way that is more prone, or it's more supporting their personal lifestyle and their personal needs. So I think that is also the difference. And I totally agree.
Yes.
A lot of lawyers are not meant for being a lawyer because they started for wrong reasons, or they started with the wrong firm and then it didn't change and didn't allow themselves to experience different positions and different roles. I think almost 50% of lawyers, or 30 to 50% of lawyers across different countries leave within the first 5 years. And I think that's a huge number of people that depart a profession. That shows that maybe there's something wrong with at the beginning of the journey, that people just don't really realize what it is about. I can't even look at those series. I cannot watch them because it brings so much pain to me, and because it's so unrealistic, and it also used to make me feel like I'm less than and I'm not achieving things that I should be achieving because my experience is so different. So I totally agree. Now, going back to the second part of the question about the 3 things I would say should change within the legal industry or in people. So first of all, I think more focus needs to be given to education and personal development. And maybe I'm biased because I'm a coach, but I've experienced in my own career that what you know from a legal perspective, whether you know the case law or the statutory law in Europe, or how much experience you have with particular transaction, is just a portion of your success as a lawyer. The other half, or I don't know, I don't have exact numbers as to percentage of what constitutes a successful legal career, but the second part of it definitely is your personal development, your leadership skills, your self-leadership skills, your stress management, your emotional management, your time management. All of these are, quote unquote soft skills. And I think they're very highly disregarded in the legal profession, completely not present during law school, at least the law schools that I've been to. You're amazing at writing and researching and quoting, but you're not good at understanding how to manage yourself, how to prevent burnout, how to take care of yourself. So that is the first thing that I would do, is to increase the education and focus on self-development, explaining that in order to grow in a long term and sustainably in the legal profession, you will have to learn these things. So focus on the education. The second part is obviously uncovering certain taboos around burnout, around self-care. I think a lot of lawyers still wear their burnout as the badge of honor. It's something that is celebrated in profession. I billed 160 hours this week. I missed my wedding. I missed my kid's party. That shows that I'm a good employee. And I think there is a percentage, there is definitely a portion of people in law that literally identify themselves through this, but there's a lot of people that don't. And I think it really creates this dichotomy within, when you feel like, I don't resonate with that. Do I have to be this way?
Exactly.
And many of these people who parade their burnout are on the top position in the law firms. And I think the disregard for the other part of the group of lawyers that don't have it that way is then causing a lot of limiting beliefs that we discussed at the very beginning. So that will be the second part of like really removing the taboo and opening a conversation around these things. And a third one, I think, I don't really have a third one. I think
that's okay.
I don't want to just come up with something for the sake of it. So
no, I don't need you to make a list. And it's mentioned a few things, and about what they're taught in law schools. I'm lucky that my law school, I teach at the University of Miami, has had programs in mindfulness for decades for law students. One of the first in the country to do it. And I was actually just looking at the schedule for classes next semester, and there's one we have on emotional intelligence for lawyers. That's unusual in law schools, but I think you're starting to see more of it, but not nearly enough. And you are finding more universities sending things out about mental health and mental wellness. But the issue is, I think for a lot of lawyers, we're afraid to show that we need help. We're afraid to show that we're vulnerable, because our job is to be the strong person who can solve your problems. So who am I to say I've got problems? Because my job is to save the day. That's my superpower, or whatever it is that lawyers think that they have. But I want to turn to something you talked about a couple of answers ago, because it also relates to what we just talked about with the generational differences and divides. That leads to a few things, right? And again, because I see them, not only do I teach law students, I also teach college students. So when I hear people in firms or in companies saying, this generation, they're so lazy, they don't have any work ethic, they just want to do yoga and and live a soft life or the lazy life. I mean, every time I go on social media, there's a new hashtag of soft life, lazy life, don't work hard life, whatever it is. Um, so there's some myths there. And another episode that has aired before yours, we actually have a generational expert. She works with law firms on that. But are the generations all that different? We talk about I think it's Gen A, Generation Alpha, which is before the Zoomers. The Zoomers are the ones that are, in college and law school right now. Then you've got the millennials, you've got the Generation X, you've got the boomers, you've got all these different labels. And we shouldn't necessarily put people in groups, but do you see differences in how the generations uh, look at the practice of law and look at work in general, especially work life balance, work life integration? And what do future leaders in law firms need to be thinking about as this next generation is going into the workplace?
I think like with the whole world, we are experiencing a huge shift in the way we work with whether is it AI, whether it was the pandemic that completely shifted the way we work and interact, or it is a development of technologies. The generations, obviously the new generations are looking at work differently. They have different expectations and different also requirements for their job. They're looking at different things, let's say, compared to boomers. Now, I have to put a caveat here because I mostly work with older millennials, so people that are my age. And so I kind of really
So you
much
don't have to
resonate.
give your age, but you can give the age of the people because by the way, there's people who have differences about, okay, am I a millennial? Am I not a millennial? So just give us the age range if you don't mind.
I work with people who are between 25. Okay, these are not the older millennials, but 25, but mostly like up to 45, 40. So
Mm-hmm.
in this area, and I would say between those people, I do not see a generational difference. It does not mean it does not exist, but I'm just talking from my perspective as a coach. As I said very early on in the interview, I have a very streamlined and narrowed down avatar of people that I work
Mm-hmm.
with because that is my zone of genius or my superpower, if
Right.
you will. And so I know I can give them the best results because I have a huge affinity and proximity to their issues. So from my practice, I don't see a huge generational difference because I don't work with multiple generations. But of course, as an entrepreneur, I see even in the past few years a huge shift. I don't think they don't want to work. I think they just want to work differently. And I think boomers really do not understand that optic of working differently because they've just been brought up in a completely socioeconomic background, a completely different background. Now, if I had to give an advice to the law firms about how to manage these generational differences, now going into more generic coach and putting the head of a generic coach, not a coach of female lawyers in this particular demographic, I would say it's really about communication and understanding that we are all here for the same purpose. This is what I did with my team. Understanding we might have different backgrounds, we might have different focus positions that are focused on different areas of law, different current needs or personal preferences, but we are here to deliver a particular result. And I think that really dials into the culture of a law firm. If a law firm does not have very well defined culture, these issues going to pop up, but they are not the problem. The problem is not the
Right.
generational difference. The problem is lack of common denominator culture in a law firm. And I think many law firms are missing that because the only culture is hard work. Work 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day, give me a result, then I give you negative feedback because pain motivates more. And then we repeat, wash and repeat, right? So if the law firm does not have a culture that will be the soil through which the seeds can grow, it's going to be very hard to then get different plant and different flowers, right? If you don't have different seeds and the soil that supports all kinds of perspectives. So I would say define a good culture that accommodates the new generations and that ties to reason why you started your own law firm. Who are you serving? Who are your clients? What are their needs? And create kind of a compromise or intersection between these. And from the definition of that strong culture, teach every single person in the room, whether it's the receptionist, whether it's a paralegal, junior, up to the partner, of how they role ties into the common mission and vision. And this will kind of unite those generational differences into one common mission where everybody feels like they're part of a puzzle that is absolutely essential for the firm to succeed. And I would say this is actually the third point that I was supposed to mention in the previous question. personal empowerment. My entire
Right.
coaching methodology is built on empowering people. I'm not looking at my clients as somebody who needs to be fixed, or somebody needs a savior, or somebody needs a book to be better. Everybody has the tools, but they have to be empowered to use those tools within themselves and to learn and grow. And I think if you empower that generation and really
Mm-hmm.
tap into their uniqueness and the potential, they can enrich rather than slow down the growth of the firm. Because the firm, every team, I had it in my own team, needs different personalities. So just kind of bring it back to, if somebody's now listening and they're, having a law firm with multiple age brackets and generations of these issues pop up, I would say go, like, do the homework yourself and define the mission of your firm and the culture, and ask yourself, am I showing these people the culture and the mission? Are they aware of it? Because most likely they're not, right? Like, I think if I go to your law firm right now and ask you, what is your main goal as a firm? Nobody in that firm will be able to give me the same answer. And it has to be like a mantra that people can subscribe to, and then attach their unique role, position, personality to that. And I think people will perform much better when they're empowered and when they're
Absolutely.
allowed to be who they are within the mission of the
I love it. So, do you think that everybody has a superpower? And I'm sure you have one. What would you say is your superpower?
firm. I think there are superpowers. I think they're seasonal. This is a notion of higher priority, which I work also with during my productivity coaching. And that is, there are
Mhm.
certain things that when you do, the effort, the joy, and the result is unparalleled compared to do anything else. This is thing that you resort to do very easily, things that
Yes,
come naturally, and things that you need to put the minimum effort to get the maximum results. And this is a thing that you mostly do when you procrastinate. And this is the superpower, because you're able to do it whenever and however. I do, however, believe there is not just one superpower that's going to be with you from your birth till death. I think there is a
right,
seasonal thing. I definitely had superpowers when I was in high school. I was Arabic instructor. Back then, there was the Arabic group classes.
hmm,
So I was really a gym enthusiast. Then my superpower was definitely law. I was having a legal blog. I was writing
right,
articles, academic articles. And now my superpower, obviously, is not just coaching, but creating processes for people through which you can input various experiences and various parameters and come to a same conclusion or same result. And this is my superpower, that I'm able to put together many teachings from the self-development and productivity industry and just really adjust it to a particular type of person in a particular experience and allow them to get the repeatable and expected results. So this is my current superpower, is in my coaching business.
I love it. And many people don't get to do that, right? Some people work at a job, some people have a career, and some people, have a calling. The hope is that everybody
Mission.
can figure out their calling or their mission, but most people don't. Um,
Mm.
I want to ask a couple of questions, and that's about the importance, because you focus on productivity, of a routine. And I've heard
Mm.
some of what you said about whether a morning routine is important or not. But do you have, whether it's a morning routine, an evening routine, or something that you do every day that if you don't do it, you just don't feel right? So for some people, it's they meditate, then they brush their teeth, and they go
Mm.
outside, and then they run, and then they do yoga, and then some people do a lot of stuff. And if they don't do it well, they just don't feel well the rest of the day. Or their evening.
Mm.
Some people are evening, they'll write in their gratitude journal, they'll sit there with their tea, this is their thing, and then they go nicely into sleep. Or do you just say, whatever happens today happens, and I'm just going to live my best life, and it is what it is? So, what's the importance of that for you? And then, how do you talk to your clients about that?
Yeah, I like the distinction between importance for me and my clients, because I think routines, like the definition of balance, the definition of being trustworthy, the definition of burnout, and etc. It's all very individual. So looking from my own perspective and how I live my life, everything is a routine in my life. That's how I like it. That's how I perform my best. That's how I'm less stressed, more emotionally balanced, and I really feel like I'm on the top of my game personally and professionally. My core routine, I do have routines for my business. Every day has a theme in my business. I do the same things on Monday, on Tuesdays, etc. We have a routine for my family to ensure my husband is an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. It's very hard to find time because we're working 24/7. So we have
Hmm.
family routines to ensure we instill good habits in our daughter's life, and then she has the stability and a family life that we want for her to have. But I do have a lot of personal personal routines. I would say my core routine that is make it or break it for me is the morning routine. And I wouldn't go as far as saying that if I don't do it in the morning in a particular order, the whole day is gone.
Right.
It's a write off. I've learned to manage myself. Even obviously, I have a small child, so sometimes morning routine is not possible. But I don't beat myself up, and I'm able to push myself and put myself in a state where I can perform well despite not having the routine. But I do see, especially over time, if I skip the routine for multiple days, I see that on a higher level and in a bigger picture, a huge difference between how I perform, not just at work, but also how I feel in that particular day and how I'm in my personal life. Now, for what it concerns the content of the morning routine, that has been evolving. And again, it depends on which season I am in, what my current needs are. But I would say there are three elements every single morning. There's a body element or physical element. I do work out in the morning. I could never stick to a workout in the afternoon. I'm a super disciplined person. At least I find myself being disciplined, but working out in the afternoon is not possible.
Right.
For me, it's the morning thing. I wake up. The second part is my soul part. So I do visualization. Sometimes I do meditation, but or prayer. Depends how I feel in that particular moment. But there is always a soul connecting element to my routine. And the last one is mind. So I usually journal. And I use various journal methods depending on the season, again, depending on how I feel. But that is when I kind of work with my mind and I think about my day, think about the day ahead, think about the days I've had, think about my long-term goals, and kind of try to make it all connected and try to know how, if I do this today, it is connected to what I did yesterday and it's connected to what I do tomorrow. And this is how I like to start my day, when I'm absolutely centered and calm and focused. And it gives me so much leverage. I'm very well aware of the fact that you don't need to have a morning routine to be rich. You can make money without any routines, right?
Right.
But I think specifically for lawyers, and going back to the burnout question that you've had, I think having a routine that is calming, that puts you in control, again, going back to what I said about lack of control, and it feels like you are in charge of your life, even if it's just a half hour in the morning or half hour in the evening, it can make a huge difference over a longer period of time. So maybe there is no direct correlation between you journaling and you making 6-7 figures in your law firm, but there is a correlation between you journaling and becoming more aware person, more balanced person, more fulfilled person. There is data and research that shows that. So this is my morning routine. Now, how I work with my clients is a bit different because, as I said, I have a process. So I do not have tips and tricks. So I'm not telling you do this in the morning. You have to wake up at 7:05. You're gonna have lemon water and you got a picture. So this is not what I do. What I do,
and by the way, lemon water right here, but go on.
huge fan. So this is not what I do. What I do with my clients is always looking at it holistically. And what I mean by holistically, if somebody's not working with coaches or not very familiar with the term, is really taking a few steps back and understanding, what do you really want in span of 3, 4, 5 years, right? In 5 years, if this was the best 5 years of your life, how would your life look like 5 years from now? And then rewinding and working backwards from the high level vision into your seasonal priority. Let's say you want to build a huge law firm. Let's say you don't have a family right now. That's not your focus. Obviously, your current priorities will be different than somebody who's expectant mother, right? And her priority would be to take as much time off with the child as possible. So looking at the current seasonal priorities that fit your life and your vision is absolutely essential baseline for building a routine, because that routine has to support creation of that reality, right? So it's not about influencer having a morning routine with 75 elements in it. It's about which routine supports you on your journey towards your goals. So that's the step number one. And then that step, once you are aware of your priorities and what you want to achieve, then you define which elements your plan, your weekly schedule, your daily schedule should have with the time allocation. Now we're giving a master class again, so
that's all right.
But to simplify, it is really about understanding what you want and how you need to show up in particular periods of time throughout the day and week in order to achieve that.
Excellent. So second to last question is this. Is there a book or a song or a mantra or something that has inspired you so much that you want to share with people who are here today listening in. That's something that inspired you, that helped change your life, or helped change your perspective in such a meaningful way that you want to share that.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of learning. I'm always learning, always studying, doing courses, reading books. But if I have to pinpoint one particular source of inspiration that has completely revolutionized how I look at my career, my life, and I think that also gave me impulse into shifting my career more towards coaching, is Personal Power by Tony Robbins. I think there's a book and there's also a course. I consume so much from him, so I cannot quote you the exact
Me
title,
too.
but it's really about taking ownership of your life. And it doesn't matter the circumstance, it doesn't matter the socioeconomic or other backgrounds that you're in, that obviously can pose different hurdles to your life and have shaped the experience you've had. But really understanding that from now on, you can be in charge. And from now on, you can change for better. It might not be perfect, but it can be better. And taking the responsibility and ownership is, I think, the single most important thing you can do on your journey in developing both your career and your personal life. So definitely
Love
would be
it.
my suggestion, Tony Robbins.
And then the last question, if people are listening and they want to work with you, yes, we will of course have links, but how can they connect with you? How can they work with you? And
Yes,
remind us again about who you focus on and who your ideal client is.
yes, definitely. I would start from the ideal client. So I work with females who are 25 to 45. Obviously, that is not age is not prerequisite, but just to kind of give you an overview of
Right.
which stage they are. They're not they're not students. They're not super junior. They're people who already had a couple of years of career under their belt, and they start to realize that the hard work that they put in at the beginning is not necessarily what is
Right.
making them satisfied and justifies how they live their life anymore. They want more from life, especially from a personal experience, whether they want to find a partner or build a career or build family, or whether they want to stay single but just want to have a more enriched experience in their life, right? So these are the people who just started their leadership position, or they're looking at a leadership position or new level of their career, but they want to do it in a way that supports also their personal life and their work-life balance. So this is a type of lawyers that I work with, female lawyers. And the first step I would say is definitely going on my Instagram. That is my home. I do have obviously website. I have my list, but the first step I would suggest somebody who is interested in working with me or learning more about my methodology and what I do and my strategies. It's Instagram. It's at Dominika Fasolo. So that's just my name and surname all together. And you can start right there. I do have a freebie, which is a balanced lawyer blueprint. That's a blueprint for routine for lawyers that want to have more balance, but also want to grow their career. But I would say the best next step would be, if somebody really resonates with these messages, is to schedule a free discovery call to see how really their life situation fits into what I do and whether we will be a good fit. And you can book it directly from my Instagram. There's a link. So I think that would be the first step that they can take.
Excellent. And we will have all of your links and ways to contact you in the show notes. I want to thank you so much for having such great energy,
Thank you.
and for taking on a tough mission, right? Because coaching lawyers is not difficult, but I'm really glad that, number one, you're here, right? Because you've been there, and that you're also not trying to get people to leave the profession.
Mm.
Because I think sometimes, we say, well, the law's terrible, it's time to leave. So there is a benefit to have people like you who want to help people stay in the profession. And they may decide it's not for them, but at least that you're giving them the tools to do that. So thank you, because I think people like you and me, we're going to change the profession. The profession has to change. It's a really important profession. And I'm glad that you're here with me to get it done. So thanks again. And remember, all of you guys, even if you're not a lawyer, if you know a lawyer, if you love a lawyer, if you have friends who are lawyers, please pass this episode on, because I think it's going to be really helpful. And it's not just the usual fluffy stuff that we talk about. I think you gave some really tangible, actionable tools, at least, 3 master classes in here. So thanks, Dominika, again. And
Thank
look
you
forward
so
to seeing
much.
you and on Instagram and your great content on Instagram. Take
Thank you
care.
so
Bye-bye.
much. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us. Stay tuned for the next episode. If you like what you heard, subscribe and share it with